On another exciting episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, we are giving our recap of season 2 of Invincible. And if you thought it was going to be any less heartbreaking or intense or gory than the last one, then you were wrong. We're going to talk about that and much more right after these ads we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. A 1, 2, 3, it's time for Animation Deliberation. A conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action animation and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. I'm Zara Lee.
And my name's J. Scotty St. Clair.
And after a lot of waiting, we finally got it. Invincible season 2. It's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like our listeners had a little bit of waiting, it's been about a month since our last episode. So 4 weeks is oddly enough time for 4 episodes of a show to come out. Funny how that works.
And I was an episode behind too. I thought that 7 was the last one. I guess I lost count, and then I looked at it today and I was like, oh crap, I still got one more to go. Whoops.
Yeah, so obviously we're here to talk all things Invincible season 2, our enjoyment of the season, our excitement for the season. But before that, let's just kind of, like I said, it's been a month, so let's check in. Let's check in with each other. How you been, buddy? What's been going on?
I've been all right. Just living life as a business owner.
All right.
If you guys want to help out, follow Upright Exposures on Instagram, just so I have some followers. But that's like creeping into busy season. Like I've been in the industry for 8 years now. It's just my first year like doing this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just struggles of making sure clients are happy and emails are answered and appointments are booked, and it's just always being on my phone. And like I'm not a morning person, but I have like texts and emails like as early as like 6-7 a.m. I'm just like there's so much to look at as soon as my eyes open.
Yeah, that's funny.
But it's been good. I'm grateful things are going well. I'm just tired. That's all.
Yeah, when it comes to being a business owner, being busy kind of comes with the territory, and unfortunately, being busy is the good situation here. You'd rather be busy than not busy in this situation. Yeah. So I'm glad for you in that sense. But you talk about being a morning person. That's funny because I kind of go back. Well, yeah, whether you're one or not, and I that's something I kind of struggle with too, because I say that I am a morning person in the sense that like I can be incredibly productive in the morning if I'm left to my own devices. I don't like interacting with other people the first couple hours of the morning. Okay. So I'm not a morning in that sense. Like, don't talk to me, but I can get shit done in the morning time. So, but all that being said, with you being incredibly busy, I hope that you still get a little bit of downtime. And I'm curious, in that hopeful downtime you get, has there been anything you've been watching other than Invincible? There's like
I forced the downtime.
Okay, yeah, there's like a plethora of content out right now.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've been obsessed with is weekly releases of Shogun.
Oh yes,
those episodes have been so good. It just like lives rent free in my brain all the time.
For sure.
So I've absolutely been loving that. We were just talking off air. I got to watch Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. To the listeners, no judgment. I watched the first Ghostbusters for the first time the other day. I skipped 2 and the 2016 release, but then I watched Afterlife and this one, and I've been really happy with these 3. They were super fun watches. I'm glad I made the time to do that. I saw Demon Slayer in theaters. I saw Godzilla X Kong in theaters. That was a fun one.
Yeah,
I was kind of trying to stay awake during it. Manhunt has been a great weekly watch.
Okay.
You familiar with that one?
The title rings a bell, but I can't think of anything about it.
The first episode is John Wilkes Booth's assassination of President Lincoln.
Okay.
And it's about the chase, the hunt to try to find him.
Is it on Amazon Prime?
No, it's an Apple one.
Apple, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's another show that's been great. Another Apple show that ended a few weeks ago was Masters of the Air. Same guys who did Band of Brothers, Spielberg, and Tom Hanks.
Oh, excellent.
So that one was really good. I'm not mentioning too much animated stuff.
Well, that's funny. That's funny that you. I did notice that. I'm with you 100% on Shogun. Like, there's a variety of shows that are coming out right now that I look forward to watching. Like X-Men 97 is one of the ones that I look forward to watching
Hmm.
the most every week, but none take the cake as much as Shogun does. Like,
Yeah,
Shogun always takes priority. I'm always most excited to watch Shogun, and even the weakest episode of Shogun, which for my purposes, I think this most recent episode was the weakest episode, but
agreed.
it was still a phenomenal episode. Like, I was still wildly entertained. So when your weakest episode is still that good, that is just, something to be said there. But
No, I think
uh
the one before last one was weakest.
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, at the time of this recording, like tomorrow's a new episode, so I'm very
Yes.
excited. Something else I'm very
Exactly.
excited about, Spy Family Code White comes out at the end of the month
Oh, nice.
in
Yeah, that
theaters.
I got pushed back, huh? Because that was supposed to come out in December originally. I remember we talked about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
so.
so. So
Okay.
I'm still behind on like season 2 for that.
Okay.
Um,
Did you happen to watch on YouTube? There was a short film released called "The Spider Within," and it actually like takes place within the into the Spider Verse, across the Spider Verse Sony film
mm-mm,
franchise.
I haven't even heard of
Okay,
this.
I'd recommend it. It came out not last week, but maybe the week prior, and I definitely wanted to make a point to mention on this show. And I don't know if it's necessarily required viewing in the sense of like how much it fits into like the overall story that we've been presented with the films, but I will say it's definitely worth a watch in terms of just having a little getting to spend a little extra time with Miles. And then from a mental health perspective, as somebody that has personally struggled with anxiety, and I think you have, um, shared with me that you've at least struggled with that in some capacity too.
Hmm.
I think this is a brilliant depiction of like what anxiety can look like on the screen. So I would definitely, recommend it to that end.
Oh, so this is actually like Sony made too. That's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how had I not heard of this? Hmm.
I guess I failed you. I should have made sure that you knew about it. My bad.
2 weeks ago. Okay,
Yeah,
add it to the list.
cool.
But yeah, so you mentioned X-Men. I
Yes.
haven't seen any of it yet, but for the sake of the listeners, we do intend on reviewing that when the season is over.
Yes.
Bad Batch when it concludes, because I don't think there's too much left of that. Maybe like 3, 4 episodes left at the
Yeah,
time
it's
of this
gotta be
recording.
yeah, it's gotta be wrapping up here soon.
Um, Star Wars has gifted us with Tales of the Empire trailer, which I'm very excited for. Get to see a lot of dark side stuff. So definitely going to be, chatting about that soon.
Yeah,
Um,
2 characters that I'm kind of in the dark about, but the trailer was epic.
yeah,
Looks really cool.
yeah, yeah. I was just scrolling through Twitter and I was like, what's this? Oh my god, what is this? I'm just impressed with
Yeah.
how many points in time of the Star Wars timeline that they're covering.
Yeah, yeah. It is impressive.
It's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's my little recap of what I'm watching and what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, I know the listeners are probably eager for us to get into all things Invincible, but final thing I want to say is like I often talk about how I have a show that's kind of like my show that I fall asleep to, the one that I just kind of throw on and absorb. And that show lately has been We Bare Bears. I just kind of like stumbled onto it. I was watching an unrelated YouTube show, one of those YouTube channels where they recreate food from shows, and they featured We Bare Bears, and just whatever the imagery I saw, it compelled me. I was like, okay, I'm going to go at least give this a try. And all 4 seasons are available on Max, and I have just been loving this show. I have made it like my personal mission in life to make sure everybody watches We Bare Bears season 1, episode 11, titled Shush Ninjas. This will give you theater etiquette 101. Like, they should play this thing at the beginning of all Regal and AMC showings, like the part where they have the spiel about, turn off your phone. They should just play the speech from this episode instead. Everybody go watch this
I
and tell me what you
have
thought.
I have seen snippets of this before. I remember watching the trailer before it came out, thinking this is something I'd be interested in, and then just never got around to watching it.
Yeah. And I will say it is firm. It's a kid show, but it is super smart. It's super wholesome, and it is just
Mm,
chock full of like pop culture references. So, really, really good. I highly recommend it for anyone of any age.
interesting.
Almost done with season 2.
All right. I have to do a little recap on this.
Indeed, indeed. All right. Well, that out of the way, shall we talk about some Invincible season 2?
The inevitable Invincible. Let's do it.
All right. Not non-spoiler starts. Non-spoiler thoughts to start off with. That's really loud. Non-spoiler thoughts to start off with. What did you think about this season?
um, season one did leave a very high bar.
Mm-hmm.
Season two, I think the storytelling and the intensity of all the situations was pretty on par with it, but there was just a lot of different storylines kind of like happening at once.
Mm-hmm.
And to do 4 episodes, take a break, and then come back of it, on top of like trying to watch like other things, like sometimes I had a difficult time um, putting the pieces together. And
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they are revisiting particular storylines instead of like starting up a bunch of new threads, which I do appreciate, and I am excited to like. I really enjoyed the season, and I'm looking forward to the day where I can sit down and kind of binge everything together again, if that makes
See
sense.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, but just because there's a lot of threads to kind of keep track of. So like I want to say I give it 4 out of 5. So above whelmed.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't know if I came up with like a numerical value. Maybe by the time I get to the end of my spiel, I'll land somewhere with it. But I agree with a lot of what you brought up. I will start off by saying I am not a fan of the breaking up of a season with one half and a second half. Like it's not the first show to do it. It's been kind of a trend as of late, especially with animation. I understand why they do it because animation is so intensive and takes so long. They would rather just like put something out there to sate the fans.
They made a
But
point of that in the season too.
they do, yeah, which I'm excited to talk about. But I think for my purposes, I would kind of just almost rather wait, like just get the whole season done. Like I'm okay waiting. There's enough content and shows out there that I can fill in, the time in between. I think it would just serve the show better to just kind of, not have that break and not lose that momentum. But
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I do think it was stronger than season one in some aspects, but weaker in others, and slightly weaker overall, but still wildly entertaining. In terms of like technically speaking, from the animation standpoint, I know when we talked about the first season, I talked about some of like the poorly rendered like computer generated background blobs. I was glad to see that those were done away with, but there was still a little inconsistency with the facial animations. Like I feel like for whatever reason they're just like kind of lacking like a character like style guide. Like artists are supposed to have like this like basically a sheet that they can reference that shows like the character expression and at different angles and all this stuff, and I feel like that's just kind of missing. But
Weirdly
I
enough,
do.
it seems intentional.
Well, yeah, it does, especially with like episode 7. Like they basically poked fun at themselves, which I absolutely
Mm-hmm.
loved. But apart from that, still remaining spoiler free here. I will say that, and recency bias may be a factor here. Because full transparency, I did not go back and watch the first 4 episodes before
Same.
proceeding into the second half of the season. But the episodes in season 2, like what kind of stuck out to me is I it did feel better paced and more focused than season 1. And I think that's kind of something that
Sure.
you were bringing up, where we were like instead of creating new threads, we were revisiting old established threads, which I
Mm-hmm.
think kind of speaks to what you're talking there. And while it still had a huge emotional punch, like you said, season 1 was just really, really a tough act to follow it in terms of emotional punches. But I as far as a follow up, I thought it was a very serviceable second season.
Yeah, I think the theme of this season is Mark Racing can't catch a break.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And he's not the only one, but yeah, him. Primarily him. So
Yeah.
okay. Any other free thoughts before we move on here?
No, listeners, if you haven't had a chance to catch up, this is your opportunity to do so. Season 2 is wrapped up and completely on Prime with these stinking ads that you got to get rid of for $3.99, even though you pay $120 a year for it.
I didn't find myself minding them that much. It annoyed me when I discovered it was going to be a thing, but they moved pretty quickly. I thought they were
Yeah.
placed
It's not
pretty
like YouTube
well.
ads.
Yeah, yeah,
But one of my friends has been so petty about it. He makes all of his Amazon order separate
yeah.
to make them have to make multiple trips to his house. And
Yeah.
he said, "Fuck your $2.99."
I
So
can't.
his anger for it really cracked me up.
Yeah. Hey, we all have our fights to fight, and he's fighting the good fight.
I actually really wanted to watch Roundhouse when I heard Jake Gyllenhaal on
Oh,
Smart List.
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. What did I
Yeah,
say?
Roundhouse, but
Oh
you're
yeah,
not
I keep
far
thinking
off.
Roundhouse Kick because
You're not far
because
off.
McGregor in it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I've been wanting to watch that, and then like in my head, I'm just like, oh, but it's gonna be a movie with ads, so it's like, what's the rush for me to do it? Like, why am I gonna watch a movie for the first time with those breakups like that? But
Yeah. When did they roll out the ads? Because I feel like I watched. There's another movie on Amazon Prime called Ricky Stenicki. I feel like I watched that like a week or two ago, and I watched that without any ads. And then when I went to go watch Invincible, suddenly the
so
ads were
that
there.
was what I was told is that the movies don't have ads, but the
Oh,
series do,
I see. Okay,
which is
okay.
interesting. I like that they at least did that,
Uh huh.
but yeah,
All right.
boo for more ads.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and delve into the spoiler section here, and I've written up a brief synopsis, just kind of covering the overall season. So let's read through that, and hopefully that'll kind of refresh our memories as well as the listeners, and help us inform a good conversation here. So
Yeah, do you want to break it up or do you want to get the whole thing?
yeah, I'll take the first paragraph. You can take the second, and I'll bring it home.
Cool.
All right. In season 2 of Invincible, Mark Grayson faces escalating threats both on Earth and across the multiverse. Tensions rise in Mark's personal relationships with his mother, Debbie, and girlfriend, Amber, as he grapples with his father's legacy, college, and his duties as Invincible. Meanwhile, a new villain emerges in the form of uh, Angstrom Levy, a reality hopper who seeks revenge on Mark. Mark's journey leads him to a brief reunion with his father, Nolan, and the discovery that he has a half brother named Oliver. Ultimately, Invincible has a final confrontation with Angstrom, a brutal battle across dimensions that results in Mark seemingly killing Langstrom, which weighs heavy on the young hero.
While Mark navigates his personal struggles, Earth and its heroes face external threats, including the impending Sequid invasion and the looming Viltrumite Empire. Allies such as the Guardians of the Globe and Coalition rally to defend against these threats. The Guardians experience some growing pains, adjusting to a constantly changing lineup, with Rex Robot and the Immortal forced to balance their duties to the team with their relationships. Adam Eve contemplates her role as a hero, while a new hero, the Shapesmith, emerges on the scene.
Elsewhere, Donald, Cecil's recently resurrected right hand man, navigates his own trauma and understanding of what it is to be human, while helping college student and victim of experimentation Rick do the same.
So there's no shortage of action and traumatizing storylines in this. So I'm gonna divert for a moment
Okay.
on on a topic that kind of wrapped up this last episode, and it's the relationships in this. Like I'm deeply invested. Like there's tropes in terms of like how the superpowered person and the normie get together and when they break up and how they break up. It's one of those things like it was inevitable, but I've been kind of like sitting and waiting, like, when is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? What's the tipping point like finally going to be? And I guess like now we're in spoiler territory. Like
Mm-hmm.
threatening to get your head ripped off is kind of like a good standard to be like, yeah, I'm done with this. is a
Yeah.
big one. But then even him going to the future and seeing Eve over there, he's like whatever you tell her, like tell her something. And then
Yeah.
for them to still not have that conversation, like I can't believe like how invested I am in the relationship stuff when it comes to this. And it could
Mhm.
be on the two episodes that we did cover earlier, we talked a lot about Mark's mom and just what she's been going through and her trauma, but she's like every episode she has like some expression of her relationship with Nolan. Recently how she doesn't regret it and this and that either. But
Right.
for to hear Omni-Man even say like, "I think I miss my wife."
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the way that
Yeah.
they handle relationships in this has been really, really intriguing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree, and, like, it's almost like the action kinda plays second fiddle to the
Mhm.
relationships in a way, and don't get me wrong, I love the action, and the action
Yeah.
is definitely what keeps bringing me back, but, uh, yeah, on the subject of relationships, one of the moments that really, stuck with me was the seeming death of Duplicate, like, that whole
Mhm.
sequence when it was going down with the lizard league, the
Serpent Society.
it's basically the Serpent Society. It's Robert Kirkman's lampoon of the Serpent Society. But yeah, they're supposed to be throwaway villains, and one by one we see Duplicate get killed so brutally, Shrinking Ray, and then ultimately Rex. And thankfully they all come away in comic book fashion. They all make it out in the end. But in terms of relationships, the way that weighed on Immortal, a character that hasn't gotten a ton of screen time, but with what screen time they gave him, they honed in on exactly what his angst is. Um, so I found myself kind of like glad that if we were going to find out that Duplicate was still alive, I'm glad that they made that happen within this season. Like they gave us
Mhm.
2 or 3 episodes to really sit with her death and feel that. But I'm glad that that was something that wasn't like drawn out to like later on in season 3 or like season 4 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was sorry, there's just like so many things like flooding through my mind now.
Oh, sure.
Um that was definitely a big one. There was a moment like when she came back, I was like, "Oh, she's alive," and then I was like, "Of course she's alive." Nobody actually ended up dying in that sequence. When that sequence, like this was how we came back from the break, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like they killed a lot of people off. Like I love Rex. What's going on? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't convinced anybody was alive at that point. I thought it was
Yeah.
just done for. I'm just like, oh
I
no,
mean,
like where are we going from here to come to this point and
yeah.
be like, oh yeah, they're all fine. But they all had like, this cool dialogue. Like you already talked about like Kate and Immortal one. Immortal's like, oh, how, like I'm not even doing my job right. Like I've never liked somebody this much in centuries, and when I finally feel this way, I lose the person. Like I almost started a war because of this. I almost killed someone because of that.
Right.
Like I'm not doing my job right. Like I don't care if you're Cecil really needs to work on his leadership skills because he's just like pushing people out the door. Like I get there's a lot going on, but
Yeah.
pushing people out the door left and right. And then the other
Right.
one being with Robot and what's the girl's name?
Monster Girl,
Monster Girl? Duh. Um
also known as Amanda, is her
yeah.
civilian name.
That was a beautiful interaction too, where it was just like you presented me with the problem. I solve problems. This is how I operate. This is how my brain works. Like I care about you. I'm trying to do the best for you. And just like everything that happened between that, it's like it's funny what open communication can get you.
Yeah.
So just those types of dialogues and conversations is what makes us care about these characters.
Hmm.
To start off the show initially when they did, where they gave us the Guardians of the Globe, and we had no idea who we are, we had no idea to care for them. They based it so heavily off characters that we do know in the
Hmm.
Justice League
Right.
that like that was our initial like connection to these people. So the fact
Hmm.
that they take the time to actually delve into this is why, like, when crazy stuff happens, like the second or the beginning of part two, it really does go a long way.
Yeah, and it's because that moment was so effective in season 1 when they killed off, all the Guardians, that moment in season 2 here felt so palpable.
Not
It really
again.
was like it's like they will not let you rest on your laurels when it comes to these characters at all. But I love what you brought up about how like yeah we see it throughout the show. We see it with Debbie, as you mentioned. We see it with Mark. It's kind of like right in our faces his relationship with his mother, as well as his relationship with his father, even his brother, and ultimately even Angstrom. But I loved how, again, not all of the Guardians got like a ton of screen time, but I loved how Black Samson and Bulletproof, and Bulletproof is our newest member. They had that moment where they kind of like dissected the team, and Bulletproof got to like give all his misgivings, like this team is falling apart. Like, what are we doing? And then Black Samson gets to come back and say, "Hey, we're a family. This person's doing this because of this reason." And then yeah, it was just a great transition to have Black Samson's wisdom and then see Rudy, who is supposed to be, the smartest guy in the room, actually learn the lesson of like, hey, I care about you. It's just hard for me to express that in a way outside of, just fixing a seeming problem.
Yeah. It's that scene that you mentioned was, first off, it was really funny. It's like, your name's Black Samson, you don't even have hair. Oh, that cracked me up. But
Yeah, it
I
was
think
great.
like everything that came out of his mouth was extra powerful, because I'm pretty sure that's Black Lightning from Young Justice,
Oh, okay.
the same voice actor. So it's like that
Oh,
that
nice.
the voice of leadership is like something that I'm very used to as well. So there's like extra power in like his
Absolutely.
voice when he
Absolutely.
talks about like family and stuff of that sort.
Okay. Okay. I hate that I can't pull the voice actor because I don't think it's Kari Payton. But anyway, well, you mentioned how Invincible is chock full of like analogs from both Marvel and DC. But I'm getting kind of ahead of myself here. But in the final episode, when Invincible's having his confrontation with Angstrom and being tossed around to various multiverses, we got not one but two little Easter egg cameos where Mark teams up with who seems like Spider-Man in all but name. His villain is Professor Ock instead of Doc Ock. And then you have that great moment on the rooftop where Invincible's like, "So you're a man dressed as a bat. You don't think the name's kind of the name is a little lazy?"
Yeah, your mouth, that was great.
Yeah.
And then what else do we have? Mad Max.
Oh, what was there in Mad? Oh, just the
Yeah.
apocalyptic landscape.
Where he's like,
Yeah,
I
I didn't.
told you I wasn't in the mood for this.
Yeah.
There was another one that slipping from my mind now. Oh, him just being on a random picnic was funny. Just like sharing his life story. He's just
Oh
like, yeah, I
yeah.
just keep getting pushed from these portals, and every time I come back, I just don't know what to do with it.
Oh
So
right,
they're like
right.
not
Yeah.
doing anything.
I got the I got the sense of like how long has he been been in this? Yeah, because he even mentions he's like time works differently in certain ones than other ones.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I've been gone. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. You know my dismay for like multiverse and time travel stuff these days, just because it's so saturated. So the fact they got to
yeah,
play with it like that was very entertaining.
yeah. I hate to say it, but I'm actually even getting to that point. Like, I still like the multiverse. I think it's kind of like, hey, we're in the comic books. We're going to be dealing with the multiverse. It's just one of
Yeah.
those things. But I heard like a rumor earlier today. It was like, uh, I'm going to tread lightly here, but they were suggesting that one of the villains for James Gunn's Superman film could be like a multiversal version of Superman. And when I heard that, I was just like, no, no, we have enough of that going on currently.
Dude, you're starting everything from scratch. Do not start with all this nonsense.
Yeah,
Give it
yeah,
11 years like Marvel did.
yeah. One of the through lines that I found, I was a little surprised how much time they spent on it, but I thought it was a great through line, was the character of Donald.
Yeah.
Cecil's right hand man, who we saw meet his demise at the hands of Omni Man in the last season. And we started the season off like, I remember even saying, I was like, didn't he die? Like, was
Yeah.
he? Did I forget something? And then, sure enough, as
He
we've
did
gone
too.
on, yeah, he did. Yeah, he certainly did. But yeah, I thought that was just a great heartfelt moment where he got to have that exchange with William and Rick and say, "Hey, I am my decisions. My decisions are who I am. It's not my flesh and my blood. That's not who I am. That's not what I will be remembered for. It's the decisions and the actions that I take and the impact that those have on those around me." It's just like, I'm just getting goosebumps all over again thinking about
Yeah.
that.
Because him knowing that he's just a mortal human being, like he always goes back in. Like without like with his memories being wiped, he's always like putting himself in a situation to make sure that like
Every
people are
time.
okay. Which is
39
wild. Like,
times.
do you think he's gonna get a little bit more reckless, knowing that like he's just gonna be replaced anytime now, or like now that he's trying to remember? Like it was really sentimental until I started overthinking it, which is not something I do often. But the show kind of forced me to do it with how much they just kind of like you know play around. So I was just like, hmm. But yeah, I was like, man, Donald's a good dude. He's like the Coulson.
He is the
He's
Coulson.
he's the
That's
Coulson of this, and
absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
really beautiful to see just how good of a person that he is. Where he's he really needs. I want to say that he's what keeps Cecil grounded, but I think it's like he attempts to be that person. I don't think he actually succeeds. I think for
I
us
think
as the
you're right.
audience, he's kind of like the perfect parallel. But um, they both all have the best intentions of just trying to save humanity. But like, um, he just genuinely seems to have a good heart
Yeah,
doing it, which is cool to see.
yeah, I agree. Just I don't know. Did you ever watch NCIS?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. There was a there's a character on there named McGee, and don't get me wrong. Like it's not like I've watched many episodes of NCIS because that show's been going on forever. But I've seen a handful. And he reminds me of McGee for the same kind of reason. Uh, I wanted to ask what you thought about Alan.
I
Alan the
love him.
alien. Yeah, he's got some cool stuff cooking,
Yeah, I mean that big reveal that the guy who rezzed him was another Viltrumite.
right?
I want to know that backstory. Like, I'm ready to dive into that. That was one of the moments where I was actually at the edge of my seat. Like, give me more. I need the details of this now.
Yeah,
Um, so for him to have this mission of finding Nolan, being like, "Hey, we're on the same team now, buddy. Like, let's get to work."
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love a good twist like that I just do not see coming from anywhere. So like last when we saw him when he was on life support, and you had the guy come in and kind of apologize and turn the life support off. It was like, ooh, this guy's a Viltrumite and he's villainous, but no, he's a Viltrumite and he had a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Alan, because what I'm going to struggle on the species name, but I want to say Alan is a Unopan.
Something like that.
Okay, but yeah,
If you don't know, there's no hope for me.
yeah, I just think that's a really cool concept. The fact that like he comes back from the brink of death even stronger when he has that skirmish with Anissa, and she's just kind of like, no, Unopin can take a hit like that or can hit like that. Like that just excited me. I was like, okay, the Viltrumites have felt like such an unstoppable force, and the only ones that even like stand a chance against them are Nolan and Mark, and they're still getting their asses thoroughly whooped every time. I was just like, okay, I this doesn't seem so insurmountable. This is exciting. But I really did like Anissa as well because I
Yeah,
felt like
I was weirded out how much I liked her character. I don't know if it's because
she's
like she
she's
was
just
so
not outright
calm.
evil.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's like a calm badass in a way. It's
yeah,
like you're still ruthless. It's kind of hot, but yeah, just like her demeanor and stuff is just really fast. And she comes and she's like, "Yo, I just want to talk," because I guess everybody else has been like pitching, why they need to take over the wrong way, where it's like they're just going to be our pets, and we're superior, and we're going to do this because we feel like doing this. But for her to be like, this is the situation, this is why it's going to be that way, and like we even got the recap of like when Mark was flying and he was like thinking back, when he had the conversation with his dad when he pummeled him into the mountain
hmm,
and was saying stuff along the lines of like, you're going to outlive them, like why do
right.
you care, why do you do this, why do you do that? And for her it's like, hey, we have the resources to like put them at their peak. It just kind of like I want to hear her pitch, really. Like what's your 5-step plan for this? Why is what you're going to give us worth being like under a worldwide empire?
Yeah, we didn't get to spend a lot of time with her, but she makes a somewhat compelling argument about the number of lives to be saved. What kind of quality of life that is, that remains to be
Yeah.
seen. But yeah, color me intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
I recalled another thought that I had just as we're talking about Anissa here, but you mentioned when we were talking about Mark and Amber, how that was kind of the breaking point for Amber and for Mark too. I think just realizing that she could be put, in that intense level of danger there.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me think of how Anissa made the threat. She's like, "Do you think you can, make the difference or make the distance between, the table and me before I rip her head off? You're welcome to find out." And that plays exactly to what Angstrom
One
does.
episode later,
Yeah, but not
exact
only
same situation.
yeah, and not only that, but then you get to see it with Invincible too. One of the evil versions of Invincible basically did that to a version of Angstrom's son, but
Mm-hmm.
that he actually went through with it. So we get the threat beforehand, and then we don't get to see it on screen, but we get to see the splash and display of blood that is a result of it. So that just made it that much more like palpable and
Yeah.
terrifying to me.
And then he tests them. He was like, "I've seen other versions of you. They're risk takers. Are you one of the risk takers?" Guess
Yeah,
not. It's like,
yep.
oh. And I actually totally forgot about that plot line of there being multiverse and evil invincibles and all that
Hmm.
stuff. So like it took quite a while to bring that topic back up.
Yeah, which I was kind of surprised. I wasn't necessarily displeased, but I was surprised how our big bad in this season, he was not featured all that much.
Yeah.
Like he was
I
in the
don't even think
first
the recap covered him.
he was in the first episode, and I think he was in the final seconds of the second to last episode and the last episode, and that's it. But
Yeah, I can't
he's
remember the dude's name, but the actor, love his
Sterling K.
voice.
Brown. Sterling K.
Thank you.
Brown, yeah, love him. Yeah,
I think the
he's
first
great
time I
in
saw
everything.
him was in Person of Interest, and I was like,
Okay.
this dude's got swag.
Yeah, he's been in so much. I think his like claim to fame was This Is Us, but he popped up in Black Panther,
Oh, that's right.
American Fiction recently. He's been in tons of stuff.
Yeah. While we're talking about names, you were right about Kari Payton. Not only did he voice Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning, but he was Calderon as well,
Oh, okay.
Aqualad.
Right on. Nailed it.
Yeah,
Should have
he's
more
so good.
confidence. Yeah, he is really good.
Like I said, man, if you don't know, there's no hope for me.
Yeah. All right. Another character I want to spend at least a little bit of time on is Shapesmith.
The whole situation, dude.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of all happened because of me, and like we think are these adults like we're gonna execute you now. Like
Yeah.
crap. It's literally all because you were bored.
Yeah.
You almost took out 2 planets because you were bored.
Pretty much. Yeah. I love the moment where he's kind of like confronted or where he like realizes he has to come clean and he's like, I'm not actually an Earth dweller like you thought me to be. And it's like Cecil's like, we know you're a Martian. Just like get to the point. We've known that you're a Martian. And who was it? Black Sansa was like, everybody else knew.
Like even Robot was like, yeah, like we've known for a while.
Yeah. But forgive me, I should be more prepared here, but I'm trying to recall if the Sequid threat is entirely eliminated
No.
now. I didn't
No,
think so.
like there was something to. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like I think it was the same astronaut. Like he couldn't.
Yeah.
Like, he finally got home, and it was like in his food or something. Like one came out. And it was
That's
like,
what it was.
and
Okay.
I'm back. Like that's how the episode ended.
Right. And then I have to imagine Earth Martian relationships are not at the best because like you said, the Martians are like, we're gonna execute you. And then I think Invincible's like, I can't
He
remember exactly what he
broke
says,
him
but you
out
get
right
the
after.
yeah, it's like, yeah, so we're gonna go now.
Because that was when they had like the high speed chase or the space chase, and then he just
Mhm.
like Mark just gets out of his ship and starts blowing up the other ones.
Oh, right. So yeah, I can't remember in the landscape of the show if there was any mention about what the relationship between Earth and Mars was like prior to that, but I have to imagine it was at least somewhat friendly since that original, member of the Guardians of the Globe made the journey and wanted to serve Earth.
Yeah, I can't remember because that was like a season 1 thing where we were first introduced to it.
Yeah.
I can't remember if like it's common knowledge that there's life on Mars, or if there's just kind of like
Oh, you might be.
interagency
Yeah, you might be right.
communication.
You might be right. It might not be a common knowledge thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's like the government knows, but like I don't think like
the
just
average.
yeah the
Yeah,
average Joe Schmo knows.
yeah, yeah. Um, I guess I'm just kind of like thinking about, comparing season one to season two, and like, obviously it was nice to have the Sequid thread, like you said, revisited, but not entirely brought to a close
Starro.
there. Yeah, Starro, pretty much, right? Yeah. But then I was thinking, like, again, I do appreciate the season for being focused and not including too much that didn't factor in there. But I did find myself like missing a couple of characters. Like I remember in season one, like Battle Cat or something like that, Battle Beast. There was that episode with Battle Beast, like the white feline creature that was basically like wrecking everybody. I was hoping to see something from him. And then Clancy Brown voiced that demon detective. I was really hoping we would at least get one little scene with him because that was a character I really loved from season one.
Oh, this dude, yeah. He is an intergalactic warrior and enemy to Invincible and Guardians of the Globe. Some
So that
band
sounds like
came up the
Battle
first time I
Beast.
typed it in. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
We haven't had Damien Darkblood either.
Okay, so yeah, Battle Beast is the one that you were just reading, and then Damien Darkblood would be the demon detective I was talking about that Clancy Brown
Yeah.
voices. Okay.
I guess we never got a chance to talk about this at all, but Nolan having a whole other family.
Oh yeah, how have we not touched on that?
Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
forgot, like that was we only talked about the first two episodes of season two. So we didn't get a chance to talk before the break started.
right.
That threw me off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not only does he have a new wife, he's got a new son that looks just like him except for purple.
He doesn't have the mustache yet.
Well, yeah, yeah. Uh, I really loved for Debbie's character how quickly and accepting she was of Oliver, and I will say I was very very concerned for Oliver in that final battle when like Angstrom threw Debbie, and Debbie was holding baby
Mhm.
Oliver. I noticed baby Oliver's head like hit the floor with some
Yeah,
impact, and I get he's part Viltrumite, but it still concerned me. It was like you don't do that to a baby. And I thought his powers were going to manifest. I thought he was
that's
going to
what
be
I
the
thought
one.
too. Because the
So-
way that Debbie was just like, no, it's okay. Like I thought it was because man, the sound design that they put in that like when his head hit the ground,
oh yeah,
I was like, please start crying. It's like, okay, thank God he's crying.
right.
And that's
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
like, anger or something was gonna kick in and start triggering something, or that's when like Mark would come in, like while he was crying to that level, or see him throw his brother like that. Um there was just a lot going on, but I was so scared for both of them, and just the way they broke Debbie's arm and how messed up she was after. Like,
Yeah, that
oh
was
man, those
brutal.
house gas leaks are a nightmare.
But the cask that she got, like that cask looks heavy duty, and I found myself wondering, like, why don't we see casks like that in our society? It seems like we have the technology; we can make casks better.
We don't have the budget. Our insurance doesn't cover
Yeah,
it.
that's fair. Yeah, who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? This is American healthcare we're talking
I
about.
did really like the cast that I had last year.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will
Okay.
say that. Like,
Good.
it had some cool features to it.
Okay. All
There was like
right.
this Velcro cushion pillow thing, and it had like a stress ball holder like built into it, and it was like this nice mesh material. Like,
Okay.
I
Okay.
was pleasantly surprised with how nice that cast was. It was not, or the how nice the sling was.
Never broken a bone, but I might consider it.
Yeah, I hope you never need to experience
Obviously
having
joking.
fun in a sling.
Yeah, obviously joking. Uh, do you want to? Oh, actually, we'd be remiss if we did not talk about Adam Eve with a little more detail. So I do think the majority of her character arc was kind of like seated in the first half of the season, and even like the first couple episodes we talked about,
And her
like with
special.
and her special, of course, yeah, too. But I did like how the seeds for a romantic relationship between she and Mark were kind of re-cemented and replanted there, because I definitely remember picking up on that in season 1 and kind of like feeling like, frustrated because it's like, oh, Mark's with Amber and Adam Eve is with Rex, but they would both be better off with each other. And I didn't feel that in season 2. I mean, obviously she was in a very different headspace, kind of doing a different thing, and he was preoccupied with everything else going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, kind of like you mentioned, like he's given that opportunity from the older version of Eve, like just tell her something, and he still doesn't. And that I don't hold that against him too much, because he's like a 20 year old guy, and he's already dealing with so much. So to not be sure about exactly how he wants to broach that subject, I give him
Yeah.
a pass on that one. And she seems like she's in a okay headspace anyway. Like she's just entirely supportive. And when he says, never mind, we can talk about it later, she's like, okay.
And like it's always been like my philosophy that when you have a breakup, you have to have time to just kind of like let that simmer.
Oh, for sure.
Like when people have a breakup and then go straight into like, hookups or other relationships or whatnot, it's like, did any of that mean anything to you? Like, how do you just switch like that? And to each their own, people process their own ways. It's just one that I've never been able to understand.
Yeah.
So I actually, as important as it seemed to have been for them to bring up, like, hey, say something to her, and for him to be like, I just broke up with this person, went through all this trauma. I've only had time for one mental breakdown in front of my mom.
Mm,
I'm just gonna dive into another relationship. I'm happy that it didn't happen
yeah.
because of that setup. Had it been that they went back into it, I've been like as much as I generally want to see them together, like it would have felt rushed at this point. Like
Yeah.
for his humanity, it was important that he's just like, this isn't a this isn't top priority right now. This isn't a big issue. Like if I'm alive and healthy for a good time and we're taking care of each other and working together and things are going well together, like it'll flourish eventually. But
Mm.
it wasn't. It definitely was not the time for him to be like, "Oh, by the way, I love you."
Yeah, and he did seem genuinely surprised when the older version of Eve said that. So I
Hmm.
really don't think it was anything that he was just like, he was not even considering at
Yeah,
that point in time. So it was a little unfair of her in a sense, but I also don't blame her either, because in her version of the timeline, she's been, holding on to that for how long?
yeah.
So
It's like, did you not listen to anything I just said about saying too much?
oh, Rex, yeah. Yeah. Which
But
was
it was interesting that was
yeah.
Rex and Robot's body and not.
Yeah. 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 Very, very interesting.
So I was like, okay, so we're gonna revisit this timeline at some point because
Yeah, I
they
hope so.
left a lot hanging of like, yeah, you weren't okay when you stayed here. It's like, okay,
Yeah, it's like you survived, but you didn't like who you became. Ew, getting Dune vibes.
dude, I still can't believe Rex survived getting shot in the head.
Oh yeah, that was wild. You shot
Just
me in the
in the
head.
head. Whole Phineas Gage thing going on over here. Just I
Yeah,
thought there was actually. I was so surprised I remember that name.
yeah, it was a deep cut.
Yeah.
All right, with the historical.
Welcome to my brain. I can't remember the name of a character I just watched an hour ago, but I remember the story of Phineas Gage and a
Yeah,
railroad spike going through his head.
right.
Um, but I thought he was actually going to have something like that, where it's like there's something that he can't control, like in terms of like his emotions, or like what was like the fall off of like having a bullet go through your brain and survive during a traumatic event like that and coming back from it. Like I was like, man, all you got was shaky hands. Like good for you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if the jury's still out on that one. Like they did have, the sequence where he ran off and was reckless and felt like, he
Yeah.
needed to prove himself. And I was glad for him to kind of have that moment. And it, it I don't I felt a little conflicted, because it was like, yeah, he got his hand bitten off, and then he's got this like awesome blaster cannon now. It's like, I don't know. I felt like it was a
Oh,
little
I
bit of a
didn't put
weird.
those together. I forgot about the hand being bitten off part.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing. It was like, yeah, he lost his hand and it's made him better now, but like, I don't know. It just gave me weird feelings about like
Yeah.
augmentation in the future we're headed towards anyway.
Because he was like, I should have opened with that. I was like, did you not know you had that? Oh, I guess if
Yeah,
you ran out of the hospital, you didn't do your, combat training with all your new toys.
right.
Which that also makes me wonder. It's like, he like his power is to touch something and make it explode. So it's like, how did they genetically get like his power to like through a replacement arm?
Technology
Don't
beyond our
don't think too
understanding.
far into it, but
Yeah,
it's just a
exactly.
little thing that came across my
Yeah,
mind.
that's funny. Before we get out of here entirely, I just have to bring up like I was struggling to remember this whole ancient Egypt mummy spirit thing. How long has that been being teased? Because I feel like we've been like teased about that since season one.
I forgot it was a thing.
Yeah, it's just like always at the most random times we just get these like 2-3 minute scenes about this like ongoing like so we've in this
Apparently, Chloe Bennett was in it.
so that's kind of making me confirm that I think it has been since season one because we had the young paleontologist type going in there to find her father, and I think her father is who we saw in season one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she
Okay.
was like, "Is that him?" It's like, "Yeah, that's
Yeah.
him."
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We have.
totally forgot that this
Yeah.
plot line has come up
Oh,
before.
it's
But
I
like,
love it.
it's just like
I love it though. It's
you
just
both are girls,
I
and
was,
it's like nothing. It just I need to possess a human male, a living human male.
and then
Mark just
Invincible
flies
comes.
over, and then we forget
I,
about
I was
it.
like, okay, so is he going to possess Mark? I was like, okay, this is finally coming to fruition. We finally know where this is going. And nope. It's like, all right, so we're just going to have this evil pharaoh spirit roaming around to pop up in season 3.
Let's deal with it.
Pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, with that said, do you have any anticipation for season 3?
I think it's safe not to. Just
Yeah,
I hope that they stick with what we said, where it's like we deal with recurring threads and not too many new ones.
sure.
Because we're at a point where we have different planets, we have different multiverses, we have characters, we have storylines. Like, um, I want to be able to recap certain things and be able to stay connected, as opposed to it's like, which was this again, and how did we get over here? And it's like one of my biggest problems with Star Wars is that they keep making up new planets where it's that are very similar to ones that they have. So it's like,
Yeah,
let's contain this a little bit. Like,
yeah.
I love how creative they are. I love what the interesting storytelling that they're coming up with. I like that they're doing just enough of tropes to make us think we know what we know, but like always keeping us on our toes and finding ways to surprise us.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that they're just able to. I'm not going to focus too much on what I expect from storylines, but that's like the essence of the show that I want them to be able to maintain.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good calls, and I am in agreement with you. I think, like I kind of said, one of the strengths of season 2 was being a little bit more focused. So I don't know how long the show plans on going, but I think with the meta commentary about like, hey, animation's tough. We cut corners where we can.
Oh, we
I
didn't even
think,
talk about that.
yeah, yeah, we can come back to that. But I have to imagine, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons is kind of what's feeling right to me.
Sure.
Not being entirely familiar with the comic storyline, but
Hmm.
I guess one thing I would like to see is again thinking about like what we said about Anissa and having the introduction of a Viltrumite that's not reformed like Nolan or Mark per se, but still has like this nuance. Like I'm just excited to see more of the Viltrumites and hopefully more Viltrumites that I like really like and want to know more about.
Yeah,
So
I thought she was gonna die.
yeah.
I thought he was gonna be like, "Ooh, I'm this powerful now," and like just
Oh
wreck her right then. He's smart.
yeah.
Good job, Alan. Alan.
Well,
Alan.
did you want to come back
Alan.
to that whole thing where Mark's in line at Comic Con?
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. Where they were just at Comic Con and go for the line, and they go into all these details about animation and like the intelligence of like why they do certain points certain times just to like
Yeah.
save from like mouth movements and this. And I'm just like, you're going really deep into this, and I love every second of it because I'm not sure how much of that I ever paid attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I always do pay attention to that kind of stuff. So to have it like a lantern just like hung on it, like I
Yeah.
really thought it was great and I loved it a lot. But my favorite part of all was when he was like, Yeah, sometimes the animators really add like a lot of extra details and get a little carried away to where it almost looks like a different show. And it just flashes to Mark for a second. He's got like all these extra sketch lines and his eyes look like super sparkly.
which which is why when you were bringing up the whole thing about like they don't have like the reference sheets, I was like, it seems
Yeah.
intentional, especially off shit like that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
mood for what today?
Pretty much. It reminds me a little bit of like one of my favorite gags with SpongeBob is when they'll just be like, somebody will point out something or like react to something, and it'll be like a highly detailed, like, still. Like in the classic episode where he's like getting dehydrated at Sandy's place, and it just has that one where it zooms in on him, and you can see like every pore, yeah, being dried out. Yeah,
Just all the Anya moments.
yeah. Gone. Alrighty. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Nah, I think that's it for Invincible. It's a great show.
Yeah.
I guess we'll look forward to season 3 in 2 years.
Yeah, probably.
See what they give us in the middle. I really like the Adam East special, how it was just like a movie format.
Yeah, agreed.
There's a lot of people they could do something like that with, even if it's one of the different timelines.
Yeah, it's a really good call. That'd be a great way to flesh out the series. Like, I would totally watch a Rexplode special. Yeah. Cool. Alrighty, my friend. Well, why don't you let the people know what else you got going on the interwebs?
Yeah, so 323 with Reed Murphy. We went to AwesomeCon in DC, had hundreds of people at our panel when we were up on stage, which was really cool. Got to interact with a lot of cool artists and stuff.
Sweet.
At the gallery. It was a great weekend. And all of that is on YouTube now. So check out 323 with Reed Murphy. That's REID. And then I had my my post-book appearance on Peeves' Gap Fest to talk about Chamber of Secrets. I'm finally getting to that point where it's like, now that I'm reading the books, it's like ruining the movie for me. So I need the show to really hurry up. And I'm reaching like my 2 favorite movies. I'm just like, oh no. But yeah, it's just an hour-long conversation of me reading the books for the first time after being like a lifelong movie-only watcher. So that was a fun episode. I love the name of it, the Zoo Heir of Slytherin.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw all that promo work, but it cracked me up.
I did. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
What about you? You want to tell people about your Tuesday nights?
Yeah, Multiverse News just celebrated our 1-year anniversary last week. So yeah, please, check out Multiverse News. It's basically your one-stop shop for anything you could be into. Star Wars, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, DC, Marvel. We're kind of the catch-all when it comes to entertainment news over there. So yeah, check us out. We definitely appreciate it. And on that note, thank you for tuning in. That's TOONIN.
And as always, stay well. Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.